Welcome back to another episode of Diamond Podcast. I'm your host, Alfredo Diamond, local realtor, local entrepreneur, community advocate. Welcome to another show. Thank you for being here. I've got a special guest today. We've been talking about this for a while. He's just so busy with my schedule and everything and putting it together. But he's actually someone that's influential in my life too, because I look at this dude from a distance and I look at him as a serial entrepreneur. And is that safe to say?
That's a great title.
Yeah, this guy's in a little bit of everything, and just the way he goes about things. And I'm pretty sure he goes into anything with a lot of research, but he seems to find his way into things at the right time. And I'm lucky to have him here and want to know more about him. Welcome to the show, owner of Kean on Biz Coaching Consultants, Jeremy Kean. Welcome to the show, Jeremy.
Well, thank you, Al. Appreciate it, man. I'm glad to be here.
Hey, thanks for being here, man. I got so much to talk to you about, but I want to start out with could you walk me through your path and how you got to where you are today? You're into coaching and development. Was that something you set out to do on your journey years ago when you started your career?
No, not at all. It was always about just business for me and my business. I hired a business coach about 9 years ago. And about 5 years in, he said, "You need to be coaching." And I'm like, man, I haven't even figured out my own businesses yet. What in the world would I be coaching somebody else? And he kept pressing. And then finally, I pulled the trigger and did that. But, that was in 21. I started, my first business was actually when I was 13 as a disc jockey.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was Whitewater Valley Disc Jockeys. It was in the yellow pages and everything. So
wow.
It was crazy because Dad had to drive me everywhere. But that was the first business. And then fast forward, I did mortgage business, real estate business, the financial sector, credit repair, pretty much the trifecta or more of that. Then went into digital marketing. I realized that you didn't have to necessarily go out and physically grind as hard as I had been doing, and got really intrigued by that. Formed a company locally with a guy named Jack. Got into the digital marketing that way, and then sold my part of that when the fundraising side started. So it's fundraising, it was 2013-ish. Got into, so yeah, I've been into literally everything. All natural products, apparel, just streaming, My Team Live, we did that. So yeah, I've got a wealth of knowledge in many different areas, that's for sure.
And you got started earlier. What inspired you at 13 to kind of start your own business as a disc jockey? What inspired you to do that?
I think probably watching mom and dad as teachers, even though that's by no means.
So maybe your parents were teachers?
Yeah, they're both teachers, and they weren't necessarily the roughest, trade by any means, but, they had to show up on time to work every day and had to follow curriculum. And, I'd hear their dinner discussions about, the administration and blah, blah, blah. And I just thought, man, this maybe kind of stinks. What's out there that doesn't involve bosses? And I think that's probably, where it was. And, I was into music back then, and I didn't like the allowance that I got. I had bigger aspirations for purchasing. And so I said, well, that's all there is there. I'll go make money.
So you were seeing money coming in?
Oh yeah, I started mowing, and then once the disc jockeying started, I didn't do the partying. I went and did DJ the dances and DJ the proms and weddings and all the weekends. So I didn't necessarily do as much extracurricular that my friends were doing, but I was making $1,000, $1,200 in a weekend, and none of my friends were doing that at 16, 17, 18 years old.
So, you're kind of like me. You've done a little bit of everything, and that's probably helped you establish an audience or build trust within the people around you to allow you to do what you're doing today. But the digital marketing, that's a different twist. How did that come into the mix? Why digital marketing?
I ran across affiliate marketing was the first thing that I saw.
What is that?
Basically where you market and represent somebody else's product.
Okay.
So that way you're not creating a product or a service or anything. You're just learning about somebody else's and feeding it to your audience for a commission. And I thought, well, and this is all online. I can sit at my desk and just make some clicks, learn a little bit of code, and, voila, Google's going to put these websites to the top of the search engine and people are going to buy stuff on them. It wasn't quite what I had expected there.
Instagram make it sound really good.
Yeah, they sure do. But luckily, I did meet somebody locally that it was ironic because I was following about 5 or 6 people I was really learning a ton from with digital marketing. One day I looked down, I said, Richmond, Indiana was at the footer. I was like, I got somebody in Australia, one in London, one from Miami that I'm following. I was like, this person's in my backyard. Who is this? So I reached out to him. I was like, hey, are you looking to, at this point, I was like, you want an intern? I just want to learn. Because when I sold the credit repair business, I was able to sit back for a minute and investigate and research and learn this whole new shiny squirrel called digital marketing. So long story, we had 2 lunches, formed a company, and it made perfect sense. And we did that for several years. But yeah, that's kind of what got me into it. Is like, mortgage and real estate's tough. You're meeting people constantly. Your phone's ringing off the hook 24 hours a day.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's a grind.
Yeah.
And I just thought, man, maybe there is an easier way to do this. There was.
Is that how your mind works? You're looking for more efficient ways?
Yeah, efficiency is like this branded word now, especially with what I'm into now, that it's all about efficiency. I mean, when you think about it, you have 24 hours in a day, not an infinite amount of time on earth. So the more you get done in every single block, the more you're going to be able to experience in that time frame. So I thought, man, if we can make things more efficient in business, efficient in life, efficient all over the place. And sometimes I geek out on a little bit. My family's like, dude, it's all right. 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
But
so that's kind of took you down this path to, and now you see how everything works. You know what it takes to operate efficiently. You've done it successfully for your own way of living. Now your thought process is to coach others. Is that walk me through that?
Yeah, so I got into business coaching. Kind of felt a little burnout and bored with the building my own thing, and I really like to help others. And most of all those businesses were service based anyway. So I thought, how about I just work with other businesses and not do the daily grind on my own. So I just started doing coaching, and that was it. And then it sort of evolved into consulting as well. Because you can give advice and you can show and tell what to do, but a lot of times they don't have the bandwidth, the manpower, the knowledge, the resources to really execute what you're coaching them on. So it started evolving into some more do-it-with you, coaching their team, not just the entrepreneur.
So what's the difference between coaching and consulting? If you can explain that to our audience, and then 2, are you dealing with small business owners like me, just 1 or 2, 3 people operations, or you're dealing with entire organizations where there's a team of people?
One of the clients we had about 80 employees.
Wow.
All the way down to two people shop, 3 people, 8 people. Work a lot in the insurance space, mortgage, title, real estate. I still stay kind of in that financial space, but more on the lines of start to finish, the entire process in their business. So I developed a framework with that, and to make it easy for whatever business it is to sort of go through that. But the difference between the coaching and the consulting, when we're one-on-one coaching, it's it kind of doesn't have much of an agenda. The client brings the agenda, and it's whatever's happened between that time to that time and how we're trying to gear towards the overall goal. In consulting, that's more of a done with. There's more of a kind of a framework. There's more phased approach. I'm more involved with the entire team, all the different teams that are involved in the project, versus just hearing from the entrepreneur what the status updates are, what their feelings are about them, and how to navigate. More on the one-on-one, it's more mindset driven, systems driven. This is what's happening. Give us a fresh perspective on it. But then we get into the done for you part, and that's the agency side where, this is what we need to do. This is how we need to do it. But then we're still we don't have anybody that can do that on the team. Then we'll either match you with someone and help you hire for the right, skill set, or somebody on our team will just take it on as a done for you. So kind of project.
I've kind of gone through that with a previous employer, but you kind of go in and you spend some time in the organization looking at things that are bottlenecks, things that aren't working, things that are working, interviewing people. I mean, is it kind of like that approach?
Yeah, a lot of times it just depends on what the problem is, what that pain point was that brought us together and ended up making the decision to go forward. We tend to deal with that, the triage kind of thing first. But after that, we deal with the client end, whether it be hiring, whether it be assessments and reviews, and just kind of sometimes just the mediator in between, a safe place for the entrepreneur to voice their side, a safe place for the team to voice their side, and sort of a translator between the two to keep everybody sort of in equilibrium in that happy place for the culture and all that.
What's a common theme that you're seeing why a client? Well, two things there. What is a common theme you're seeing why a client might or a customer might reach out to you to become a client? And then also, what avenues are you seeing as far as like that company afterwards? Like, is there a follow-up afterwards? I mean, how long do you stay involved?
So somebody would reach out pretty much when they feel frustrated, when they're overwhelmed, the cup's full, I've tried everything that I think I can try, what's next? It's sort of like having a sidecar CEO in a way, somebody that you can reach out and bounce things off to, and have regular, set, times and meetings. What was the second part of that?
As far as like the after part, like so after you've done your research, you've consulted with them, and then following up after that.
Yeah, everything's a case by case. Most everyone stays on board. I mean, we're at 4 years with the very first client that I had. So it deviates from. I guess I'm pretty loose when it comes to the things that we deal with. Sometimes it's coaching. Sometimes it kind of scope creeps over into consulting a little bit. Sometimes it's like business therapist. It can kind of range. And so I try to be as multifaceted as I can and fill whatever holes I can for them in that. And, I think they see the value in all of that and any of that at any given time, and just kind of keep me on board for whatever may come,
Even myself, I was dealing with some things internally as a professional, like the next steps in my career. I was seeing what other people were doing, which I really focused on me, but I was like, okay, I feel like, is it time for me to take the next step to grow, maybe branch out on my own, things like that. And I sought out a coach, and it was just like, it put a lot of things in perspective for me. It reinforced a lot of things I knew I should be doing daily, and things I just got busy and kind of didn't stop, but kind of put off that were important. So it put a lot of things in perspective. But to me, it got to a point where it felt like, man, I really like this. I really like my coach. But then there's also this fee, and like, how long do I let this go? So for me, I had to kind of like, okay, I know what I need to be doing. And so maybe I wasn't the best candidate to receive coaching, but man, there is a benefit, and I definitely think it's worth it. So I think it's great what you're doing.
I think it depends on the individual, right?
Yeah.
Some people, it can be a short-term thing. I'm just looking to try to hit this milestone, and when I get to that point, once the systems are running and everybody knows what they're doing, it can definitely be more of a short stint. I kind of look at that more of the consulting side.
Okay.
But typically where things end up, they start as coaching, they kind of start evolving to consulting, and then the software, the systems, the framework, they end up needing something, if not a lot of all of that. And so we just end up integrating all these different pieces in over time. And now they're dealing with me, whether it used to be coaching, but now it's software, or, so the relationship tends to evolve into a long term, just because there's so many different things that we touch on.
So pretty much, are you finding your customers your customers are calling into you, or do you find yourself more, you're prospecting to them? Is there an ideal client that you seek out to work with?
We deal with a lot of referral relationships. So, I don't luckily have to market as much as probably what I would have to without that. As far as an ideal client, service-based is where I don't really get into too much on the product side, Shopify stores and that kind of thing. I tend to stay away from those and do more service-based businesses. But really any small business at this point, small to medium-sized business that knows that there's a better way, knows there's more efficient systems, but really don't know where they're at, or don't want to mess with it. They just want it done. Then that would be an ideal client for us to start with.
Thinking back about, a couple of your business, I heard you say you've sold a couple of businesses. Can you share some insight on that? I mean, if you want to share figures, that's great, but just really, walk us through, what that looked like to, sell your business, and then finally to come to grips like, man, I'm letting my baby go, because you've created this thing. And then walk me through all those feelings and, how you structure a deal like that in finding a buyer? Like, how does that work?
I've done it two different
It's a lot,
ways.
I know, but
Yeah, no, that's good. One was somebody I didn't know and sold that business, and then I've also sold businesses to people inside the organization already. Key individuals that showed that entrepreneur spirit and showed interest in wanting to take over one day. I made them deals and said, if you do X, Y, Z, then sure. And I think the emotional attachment part is just knowing up front that I like to build businesses and then give people opportunities to run their own business, not from scratch, but in a proven system already.
Wow.
And so I'll partner with them and sell them the business, let them take off with it, and then still coach, mentor, and do the things with it so that we try to make sure it's staying the course.
That's brilliant. Yeah. What's your why, Jeremy? Why do you do what you do? I mean, why?
I'm just a real I'm a creative, and I guess just, what's the word I'm looking for? I like to just create, and I like to learn. I like to just learn new things, and everything I look at, I see it in a business way. Like, how can that be a business? Which sometimes has its faults. Like, I nitpick every restaurant I go into. I'm like, oh my God, why are they doing this? Which is terrible. But my why is really just, I didn't want to work for somebody else.
Yeah.
But I like helping other people. I really get a jazz when somebody wants to do something, they didn't know how to do it. We break through those walls of what kept them, and then to see the result.
Yeah.
I had one client that their big goal was to hit the 7-figure mark, and we did that.
Wow.
And, grew year after year after year, and just seeing them hit their goals and get on the stage, win awards, and just know that there was a lot behind that I was able to help them with. So I'd say that's the thing that every day, just I love getting on Zoom and just hearing the wins and hearing the problems. Love to create solutions for problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of why I get up and do it every day.
So think coaching moment here. So when you think about smaller companies like me, what is the common thing you see or issue you might see? Is it hiring? Is it knowing when to hire? Is it knowing when to grow? I mean, how would you coach someone that was in a small business and they're really just in that they're off the ground, they're rolling, but they need to take that next step to grow? How would you go about coaching that individual?
You got to look at business in two sections: bringing it in and selling, or converting, whatever you want to call it, and then providing the fulfillment and giving or doing what you just said you were going to do for that. So when you have to provide both sides of that, and you're the head honcho of both sides, that's typically where the entrepreneur starts, and it's the hardest part. How to find the right help, the right systems, so that you're not wearing 100 hats.
Okay.
As you scale, and typically you want to scale both at the same time. Kind of like I would envision, I'm not a builder, but envision building the Luxor.
Yeah.
If you built one side, it's you got to build both sides sort of equally.
Okay.
And I see a lot of times, good product, good service, it takes off with a bang. The infrastructure is not there to handle that much sale, or that much in sales. So the back end falls, relationships fall.
Yeah.
So it's very important to not get your skis out too far, get ahead of your skis, and know that you can support the amount of business that you're going to bring in. And so having that plan ahead of time is super important, because when you see, I'm doing way better than expected, that can be good, but it can also have some real red flags there too when it comes to the fulfillment. And a lot of times I see entrepreneurs, they're like, hey, we just got a new ride. I'm like, you're getting ready to hit a wall when it comes to trying to keep the client experience as high as what you planned on doing it, because it's not going to be that with that amount of sales.
Yeah, keep investing in that business.
Yeah, so it's just kind of keeping them. I like to think of myself as the bumpers when you go to the bowling alley for businesses. I just keep you on the rails, make sure that your ideas aren't so far out that they do fit in the overall scheme of what you're trying to do. Because a lot of people like yourself, they do real estate, they do a trucking company, they've got their venture, they've got passive investments and other things. And so, we kind of dabble into all of that. Just how does that all Yahtzee into the right formula for you?
Yeah. I mean, you seem you're like, to me, I would imagine you're a risk taker, obviously, right? So
you have to be.
What would you say to that person that is like, right on the cusp? They're like, man, maybe I'm working for someone else. I really want to venture out on my own. I know I can do this, but I'm just petrified of taking that next step. What would you say to that person to kind of give them some encouragement?
Well, you got to look at realistically, what are you risking?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want to give somebody just the cheerleading speech that they need to go take the risk, and then 6 months later they're like, "Man, I didn't have the bankroll to do that." So you got to look at what am I really risking here, and what's the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah.
Then take what you think you're going to need, multiply it by 3, and don't do it until you have that.
Wow.
So if you think it's going to take 20 grand to open that little restaurant on the corner, it's going to take 60.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you have the means for that part, because the biggest problem I've seen in 30 years of doing this, under bankroll. They do not have the bankroll and the money to do it.
Planning.
Yeah. They go off and they lease a 3-year lease on a building. They build it out. They do all that. And then 3 months in, they're having trouble paying for inventory.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, you got to plan that stuff out and be properly bankrolled for the worst case scenario. And there's ways of doing it. You don't have to feel trapped that I'm in this job forever. I'm not going to be able to save $60,000 or whatever that number is. There's ways of doing it. There's financing out there, and there's methods of being able to work a full-time job and start your passion projects, side hustle business, for sure. People do it all the time.
Can you share some tips to help somebody to get that 20? Like that first 20 is hard. I mean, and then to realize, man, I better have this safety net here. I need to think 60. How does one go about raising that capital to start that business like that? Any ideas?
Get super clear on what the business is. Sort of like the Shark Tank moment. Have that all laid out, because you've got banks, SBA, you've got grants, you've got individual investors on the side, you've got crowdfunding. If there's the will, there's so much money sitting out on the sidelines that want to put it into something, but they've got to understand it. And the number one reason people don't get funding for business is because their vision is not transparently clear. And when people are looking at investments and things like that all the time, they don't spend a ton of time. It has to hit them quick, kind of like in digital marketing. Hit your website, you got to see it quick and get the message very, very fast. And same thing with that. You got to catch the attention, show the why it's different, why it's going to hit the market, and why there's a big ROI to be made.
Jeremy, have you taken a risk and it not worked? I mean, can you share? Could you share what that was, or how you bounced back, and why you looking back why it didn't work?
Yeah, I came to a crossroads with the fundraising company at one point. I think it was probably 16, 17. Where I was getting bored again. Having ADD is such a superpower in certain respects, but God, it's such a crutch in some too. I felt I was at this T in the road where I needed to either go deep or I needed to go wide. And so I thought, okay, here's where we could go deep, wide. Chose wide, which was forming 3 other companies, side companies, and broke my own rule. The infrastructure wasn't there to support it. The people weren't there to support it. The systems weren't there to support it. But my ego and ambition was there.
Oh, man.
And so I went, okay, the right thing to do is no, but go deep. And I went the other way, knowing darn good and well it wasn't the right thing. But I was a superhero. I could do it. And it wrecked my world for a while. It, just got to the point where you couldn't go back. You couldn't stop. You didn't feel, 2 in the morning. And I'm trying to figure out why a digital printer that I know nothing about is not working correctly. And, wife hated me. The world hated me at that point, myself included. And it was the cup over full. I mean, it was just simply, there's too much in this cup. You got to get rid of something. You can't have this much, even if it does make sense. And it does connect. It doesn't make sense right now. So the timing's not right.
When do you pull the plug? Is that, looking at what you got invested at the time, when do you pull, you're like, man, maybe I jumped into this. Maybe this was doomed from the start. When do you pull the plug?
There's not really an answer to it. I think it's just one of those, almost kind of like a relationship. Sometimes you just know. Certain people give it to where it's way too long. Some people maybe bail a little early. I think it's just each individual just kind of knows when they're done with it. For me, I always have looked at it like pieces on the Monopoly board. I don't want to get too or super invested in the business, because I know the exit plan is to get rid of it and give another person an opportunity. As I'm getting older, I'm also looking at kids and my kids getting opportunities. One's graduating college, one's graduating high school this year, and the other is getting ready to finished their last year of college. So
Wow.
They're all choosing different places, and all of them have a little bit of that entrepreneur kind of bug. So I want to have, some entrepreneur legacy opportunities for them as well when it comes the time. So for me, it's never that difficult if it makes sense. Okay, cool. But creating new ideas and new businesses comes so naturally. So I don't really ever feel like I'm losing anything. I'm giving somebody else an opportunity too, and it's another passive way for me to make income. So. Awesome.
How did you bounce back from that experience? I mean, because obviously keep pressing forward, but how'd you tackle that?
Therapy.
Really?
Hired a psychotherapist. Made some tough decisions, took a couple 6-figure losses. That was really a punch to not only the bank account, but to the gut.
Man.
Nobody wants to lose, And I'll be honest, I'm doing business coaching, but yet I'm going to fire sell business, 2 businesses that really, they worked, but they didn't. Not really sure that qualifies. So I had a lot of that, some confidence issues that I kind of had to bounce back from. But, at the grand scheme of things, it's if you lose 6 figures on 2 and you hit 7 figures on 1, you're still at a really, really good position. So if I can be like an MLB player and go 1 for 3 in the businesses and still come out ahead, man, there's nothing to stress about. So, I think that's just, I just take everything kind of with a grain of salt, and if it doesn't work, ditch it. If it does, scale it, move on, and do it again.
That's an awesome perspective and a way to put that, man. A lot of entrepreneurs I talk to, business owners, they've all taken losses and took risks, and things didn't work out, and so when it happens, it stings, hurts your ego and your pockets, but you got to find a way to keep pressing forward. Like you said, that 1 for 3 ain't bad,
It's a crazy balance. You have to have the passion and all of that so that you deliver good service and deliver the product or whatever it is that you're doing, and your customer sees it and feels it, and they want to keep doing business with you. And then being able to divide that from staying in a position too long. And I'm sure anybody that's an investor in the stock market knows what I'm talking about. There is no poker table. When do you get up? Do I keep chasing if I'm down? Is this enough win if I'm up? I mean, there's never a right time per se. It's just you feel it and go with it.
Yeah. And you talked a little bit about your family there. So you have 3 children, older children now. And, man, walk me through that work-life balance. Sorry. What does that look like? Being in your role and having several businesses, and then you still got family and juggling everything. That's a long day, bro. Like, what does that look like?
It's tough.
Over the years,
now it's a lot easier because they're older. They've got girlfriends, boyfriends, and dad's just over there. But both ex-wife and current wife have been uberly supportive of the entrepreneur side. They took the role of filling in all of the pieces, making the Easter baskets, and doing all the things that I wasn't there to do for that part. But it's really just sleepless nights. I mean, coaching baseball, getting done at 2 a.m. on something, getting up at 5 to go for a 3-day trip to Noblesville. You just do it because you don't want to miss any of those times. And you chose that. You chose so that you didn't miss the 10 a.m. Thursday graduation at 6th grade. You trade a lot of sleepless nights and some anxiety for that, but you don't miss the kids' stuff. And I think you just make it work.
Wow.
But definitely having the rocks at home to make sure that all the little things are done, because you can't juggle that many things with business, kids, life.
And that's hard to do, though. I mean, balancing that, not missing a game and things like that, practices and things like that. But when do you cut work off? Are you diligent like 4:30, 5 o'clock? I'm done. I'm not taking calls. I mean, what does that look like for you?
I'm definitely a big calendar guy. I use a technique called a Pomodoro technique, which is I've never heard of. It's really good for ADD people. It's a 25-minute, and I've kind of expanded it to a 55-minute session, and then 5-minute break. So during that break, I'll get up, clear my head, do some push-ups, just do anything to just clear reset before the next block. And then I'll take notes and I'll do the things that need to happen so that I stay completely on top of all of it. And then I control it so much that not necessarily I have a stopping point at 5, 6. I look at each week with what do I need to get done this week, and what do I have going on and where are the priorities? Kids, family, everything's first. I can slot and juggle everything else where I need it, and I try to get everything done by Friday. but some nights it'll be 7, 8, 9 o'clock. I'm still working. I'll take a nap from 12 to 2 some days if I feel it, but I'll push my work tasks onto a different block. And as long as I get it all done, if not, which it happens often, Saturday and Sunday, I'll just create the discipline to make sure I get a few blocks in on Saturday morning early before people get up and get going, and then knock it all out and try to put as much self-care time as I can in on the weekends or, whatever there.
So you're really just kind of rotating things around and not losing time. You're dedicating that time to work, dedicating the time to family, dedicating time to yourself, but you don't it's not like you're not letting one thing take precedence over the other. You're just rotating as needed.
When you're a small business owner, it is your life.
Yeah.
So I just make it a 7-day plan instead of 5, which is your typical work week of 5 days, 9 to 5. That's the template. Mm-hmm. But I don't really work well with templates or frameworks or anything. I kind of have to have my own thing. So I looked at it like I've got 7 days and 14 to 16 hours in a day that I need to accomplish X. So what's the most efficient way of doing that with all of these 25 and 55-minute blocks?
Wow. That's a different perspective. I've never thought about it like that.
And I can just move them around based on what. Now, I also like, not to geek out, but I like to chunk them so that they're all in the same kind of brain space. So I won't go from coaching call to a AI work project where I'm blueprinting things out and automation steps and all of that. That's 2 different sides of the brain for me. So I put coaching call after coaching call after coaching call all on one day. And then I'm going to go client tasks all on one half of a day blocked out in those things. And then in each one of those Pomodoro units, I'm dragging in the tasks that need to be done, which have already been slotted for how many Pomos it's going to take.
Wow.
So if I've got a 2-hour task, I'm going to block 4 Pomo units into that 2-hour block. And then I'll have 5-minute breaks in between each one to break those things into little chunks. Because if not, my ADD takes off and I'm some squirrel coming up with some other new ideas. So the calendar thing for me has worked extremely well, just being super diligent to the calendar.
That's an interesting way to time block. Thanks for sharing that with me. Well, so you think about business and our community. I know you're involved. I mean, what are a couple of challenges are you hearing from other business owners? Maybe thinking about your business within this community. What kind of challenges are you dealing with right now?
I think the biggest challenge is entrepreneurs being overwhelmed and not purposefully, but sort of taking for granted their team. And when I say that, I mean the training, the experiences, the further education. A lot of them get in the rut of it's working and we're getting by. Yeah. And their employees don't want to mention it. But they want to continue to further their growth as people in that role, maybe learn other roles in there. And, the entrepreneurs a lot of times are just not focused at that sort of level. They're looking more big picture and more just getting that cup unfold or emptied a little bit. So they're not really looking at what the employees need. And the employees are everything. If your team's not happy, your clients aren't getting the experience that you think they are.
Right.
So you need to do vibe checks on your team and make it a place where they feel comfortable to come and express their true feelings, even if it hurts yours a little bit. Give them that place to do it because they're the ones that are providing the experience to your client, which is making or breaking your business.
That's so true. And there's you can tell it's a training thing, a couple different things. One, I think there's opportunities where the owner or the manager needs to be in the business.
Yes.
I see that. Also see where there's opportunities missed where due to training, staff are leaving money on the table, not asking you to upgrade you at the counter or bolt-ons. So I totally agree with you on that. I think there's more of a training need there.
A lot of coaching opportunities.
Yeah, totally.
And with the new tools out there, I'll give you an idea of one of the clients that we're working with right now. Same problem they all have. I don't have the time to do that. I don't have the time. Okay, cool, got it. So it's training one-to-many, just like coaching.
Yeah.
One-on-one coaching is not scalable, but one-to-many coaching is. So it's kind of the same mentality. I can take someone, do a 20-minute video with them, create them, their voice, their actions, and now we can do text to voice, and I can create an Alfredo.
With AI you're talking about?
Yes. That will deliver the training material.
That's pretty dope. Okay.
And it's now in a course or a training catalog that the entrepreneur just sits down one time and show it how you want it done. The tools from there will break it down into an SOP for your team. It'll be resource material for them to use, and it's not even you. You just recorded it audio driving down the road, sent it to us.
B-roll over top of that.
We put it into the machine that spits out you talking the training material, and then we put it into the course software, and now your whole team can access that.
Wow.
So it's just being willing to change. You know, a lot of people are still using Excel and legal pads.
Yeah.
It's being willing to see that there's efficiency changes to be made, not just for you to free your world up for more coaching opportunities, but if we also get the team using these tools that are efficient, they're freeing up more time. Because if you ask any employee, the number one response is, I don't have time. Any question you ask, why anything, I don't have time. So we have to free up more time.
Wait, what do you say to that person? Because I mean, there's people that they just don't know to make that change. And so if you're constantly hearing, I don't have the time, I don't have time. When do you break the cycle? How do you break that cycle to make the time to invest in your business?
Well, I think the first thing is you have to believe if you don't, that your business is not going to succeed as well as it could at best. Truthfully, most of the time it's in decline when we're at this conversation. At some level, it might not be financially, but your team might be spent. The manuals all have dust on them and nobody goes by any of them anymore anyway. But it can be masked as success, full business. But if it's doing 2 million and it could be doing 10, is that a success? So we kind of look at what's a realistic change perspective here. Like, are you willing and ready to make that change? Because if the top down's not ready to make the changes, then you're not going to get the team to buy into it.
Right.
And vice versa, you got to get the team to buy in too, because again, they're the ones on the front lines dealing with it. So once everybody's committed to the change, then it's about kind of the phases and priorities, because you can say you're ready, but then doing it and learning a new system and learning a new way is a different thing too. So putting the right phases and priorities together to where everybody can digest it in time. I mean, there's a lot we can do in a short amount of time, but the business won't be ready to adjust to that yet either. So, you know, taking an AI voice agent, for example, who now answers your customer service calls, it sounds good until you get in the realism of an AI voice that you don't know much about is talking to your client or prospect. And that wigs a lot of people out. So there's a change, time where we have to do a lot of testing, a lot of hand-holding to get the comfort level to let some of these things come over. Because we've all dealt with, no offense Verizon, but we've all dealt with like the Verizon wireless bot where it's so obvious it's a bot. It's not helpful at all. It's honestly more frustrating than anything. And so I'm like, why do you even have this? So what we're trying to do is making it to where you cannot differentiate the difference between that bot and that person that would be talking to you via voice or chat. Chat obviously is way easier in the text to make it very human. The voice you can still tell, but it's getting a lot better and it's super helpful. I mean, even if you know it's a bot, if it's answering your questions, you don't have to wait on hold. You don't have to wait for a contact form to be replied to. Do you really care? If it's not a human, or if it's somebody that doesn't speak the language that you speak very well and you're trying to get customer support from them, choose your battle. Which one do you want?
I love this stuff and love the technology. This could be an entire another episode on AI. But when you think about the future, I mean, what's next for Jeremy Kean?
Well, first of the month we're hitting sort of a cool milestone in releasing a book. It's called The Manumation Effect, which is AI, human creativity, and smart systems all blended together. So that's pretty exciting. That'll be hitting Amazon, I think, on May 1st, 2nd, something like that. Putting the final little touches on it.
Man, you're a monster, man.
Yeah, that's going to be cool.
Beast mode.
And then, really just making the full transition to the AI and automation side of coaching and consulting. Not that I won't work outside of that space, but I am a firm believer if you're not starting to adopt certain pieces of AI and automation, you are going to be left behind. Really? It's not going anywhere. There's businesses that are putting out crazy stuff that's just so efficient versus, I'll give you an example. I I'd say 6 hours would be sort of a mark for if I was racing somebody to put up a 5 out of 10 rated website. Could probably do it with a template in about 6 hours. I built one the other day to a better look, better feel, better functionality in 6 minutes.
With AI?
Yeah.
You built a website in 6 minutes?
6 minutes.
That's incredible.
If we were sitting at lunch and I had my laptop, I would show you.
Yeah, I want to check that out.
I mean, it's hair-raising stuff every single week, the new things that are coming out. Wow. And, a lot of people, this is probably the best message. Don't let AI freak you out. Don't let it intimidate you. Don't let it pass by either. There's people like me out there. There's other AI, consultant and coaches that can give you the basics, that can help, in many different ways with it. Because when you start, I like to do this with clients. Take a stopwatch and time everything that you're doing now. You, your team, all of that. And then when we start mapping it all out, we have that timing, and then I can go and say, here's all the case studies of what we can do that exact thing in this amount of time. So when you start adding that all together, let's say a $30 an hour employee, you got 10 of them. If you can save 5 hours a piece for each one of them every single week, what's that add up to at the end of a year? I can tell you the number, and it's multiples more than what it would cost you to get that implemented.
Wow.
So that's what it really boils down to when we really break it all down. It's how much time are you spending? How much money are you spending in the software, the tools, the frameworks, and all the stuff you have now? And what could it look like?
So people better get educated on the AI.
Yeah, or find somebody that already is, that have put the work in, that can immediately come in and make some things happen. Because if you're not putting it in now, man, you will get passed by.
Jeremy, serial entrepreneur, businessman. You're a monster, man. The book, man. Thinking about your past and your path to where you are now, is there anybody out there that you would like to just give a shout out to today, just to thank them for being in your life or providing value, or just someone that comes to mind that you want to thank today?
I mean, there's so many. I would say my parents and Grandma Lucy, definitely, because they've been there for financial support, mentorship from the different side of business. I had a great business coach for years in Nashville, Michael Morgan. If you don't have a business coach, get a business coach. It's well worth it.
Yeah.
And then, really just so many. My gosh, I've got so many people. Really, anybody and everybody that's played a part in any of these steps that I've gone through in 30 years. I've learned something from every one of them. Some of them painful experiences, some of them great, but definitely the business coach side and just family. They've been supportive for everything, and learning. As an early entrepreneur, I mean, my dad was out in the garage building light boxes and fixing wiring and doing, taking me to every event as a DJ. I mean, without that kind of support, I would have never had the first start in it. So, and each one of those experiences has been a big learning lesson of some sort.
Well, man, I think you're an intelligent dude. Just listening to you talk about AI, writing a book, and all the business ventures, man. And I look, it's just a pleasure to watch you grow and continue watching you grow and being someone I can call a friend. I know I can call you if I need anything.
Absolutely.
And it's just been a pleasure having you here. I thank you for spending time with me today.
Well, I appreciate it. Likewise, man. I've seen your come up too started the real estate business, a little apprehensive. And when we had that chat, we had lunch one day and boom, next thing you know, your podcast, killing it in real estate, trucking. I mean,
oh man,
watching you come up too has been a pretty cool moment.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate it. That means a lot, man.
Because not always do you know where people started.
Yeah.
And so when you know where they start and you see where they're at, man, looking at your journey, man, it's been cool.
Man, that means a lot, bro. Thank you. And that wraps up another episode of Diamond Podcast. Thank you for tuning in today. Have a great weekend.